we had a conversation when I met you about autism and how, and you touched on it in this interview, where people have been reversing, um, and that seemed, we've been kind of taught that's like irreversible, and I met and interviewed for Heal, and he didn't end up making the film just because of pure volume. I couldn't have done it, but she wrote a book, Healing Without Hurting, and it was a woman, Jen Kozak's, experiencing really reversing her son's diagnosis that was very severe at the time, and I met him, and it was mostly through diet and lifestyle, So talk to me about what you're seeing in your practice, or what you've, just to give people hope or guidance, and like so much more is possible than we've kind of been told.
Yeah, it is really frustrating to me, the conversation these days around autism, because if you start talking about healing it or treating it or working on it, then a lot of people get mad at you because they say, "Oh, it's neurodivergence, it's normal. This is something that's always been here." And for some kids, I mean, there are kids that have the diagnosis of autism that are extraordinarily intelligent, much more so than the average child. So there's a wide range of what we call autism, but it is really hard because autism is just kind of a diagnosis of things that you see. If you go to a practitioner, they run down a list and then they're looking for these things. There's no special tests that you can do, like, oh, I have strep throat. I have that. It's just a diagnosis. And I think autism is many things. And I think that we label a lot of things under the same umbrella, but like most conditions, there are different reasons for why we get it. Some can be totally genetic, and I think that's absolutely reasonable. And no matter what you do, you're still going to have that condition. Like, let's say you have cystic fibrosis, you can do whatever you want, but they're still going to have cystic fibrosis at the end of the day. You can support them. But when it comes to diabetes, right, it's the really, I think, best example to me. We have two kinds of diabetes, right? Type 1 and type 2. And when we talk about type 2, you get this condition, similar appearance to type 1, but if you change up your lifestyle, oftentimes it goes away. And I think that is true of most conditions at this point. I think we have a type 1 and a type 2 of almost every autoimmune condition, and autism as well. I think there is and are a lot of children that their lifestyle is what's leading to the condition and the diagnosis. And if we do change that up, then those symptoms will improve. Not always, but I've seen it in my practice. I've seen it in other practices. I've talked to lots of practitioners that have done it. So to say that it isn't possible or can't be done, that's nonsense, because I've seen it many times. If you don't want to change up your lifestyle, I think that's totally fine. Everybody can do whatever they want to do. But I think that there are so many kids that are struggling and so many families that are struggling. And when we talk about autism, there's a wide range of what those symptoms are, but there are families that have children that are nonverbal, that are hurting themselves, that have some pretty severe symptoms, and those families are struggling and want to do something about it. Sometimes an adult can get a diagnosis of autism, and then they say, "Oh, well, I wasn't diagnosed. We shouldn't be shaming parents or making them feel like we can do." But yeah, for some families you can. There's a wide range of what autism is, and at the end of the day, I think it is really important that we do whatever we can for these kids, to support them, to support the families, to give them the best possible life, the most functional life, the most healthy, resilient life. And for some, I do believe that we can work and change up a lifestyle, whether it's autism or almost any other chronic condition. And we need to be talking about that and doing that for those kids, for whichever kids and whichever families want to. It's time that we change the conversation back to being something that we can manage and that we have something to do with. But right now, I feel like people feel like we're blaming or shaming. It's like if we say that we did something, then you're going to blame the parent for causing the autism. And that's not the point. That's not the point at all. It's that we identify that there are things that we're doing in society that are contributing to these conditions. So therefore, we can make changes so that we can decrease them. The numbers are going up so quickly. If we don't do anything about that, one out of two kids are going to have autism, or one out of five kids are going to have autism. We need to move that back in another direction. And we do that by figuring out what's going on and being open to anything and everything when we explore this, and then making those changes for those kids.
Hmm. I love that. The type 1 and type 2 of every kind of chronic condition. It's like type 1, maybe it's like a genetic, it's a fully penetrant genetic condition or whatever. And then the type 2 is this lifestyle that, again, is not about blame or shame. We live in a toxic soup. We're doing the best we can. We're dealing with our own generational stuff that gives us blinders to certain things. It's like, but I don't know. I think we should lean into the hope of what's possible, and like take where we are now and don't blame ourselves for what we didn't know when we didn't know it,
Mhm.
and do the best we can to shift things. I don't know.
Right. I mean, just move the ship in a little bit different direction. It's not about blame. It's not about when a doctor can't talk about health conditions, it's ridiculous, right? It's like we need to talk about this. We're working towards moving to a better place, and we have to figure out what's going on so that we can do things differently. We kind of grew up in the world in the way that we did, and we didn't think about these things. Most of us did not. Like we ate fast food and we ate snacks and we did all these things because companies marketed to us, and we just kind of were like, okay, I guess that's just how it is. But the numbers weren't what they are now. The numbers are much worse now. The conditions are much worse. They're much younger. And that means that I think for us to be good stewards of the future, we need to be mindful and say, okay, we're not doing everything right. Let's move back in another direction. Medicine's not all bad. We used to live till we're 40, right? Now we live till we're in the 70s. So it's not all bad, but life expectancy is going back down. Chronic conditions are going back up. So maybe there's some things we can learn about what we did 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Maybe some of these things were a little better. Maybe some of the things we're doing now are not the best because our life expectancy is going back down. And let's learn. Let's get back into balance. Let's shift things, not throw everything out that we've learned in modern medicine, but let's also not be arrogant in modern medicine to think that everything that we do is perfect and everything that's a medication is the right way to go because we're being marketed to, just like you said right at the beginning. It's like medical training is marketed to by pharmaceuticals because who does the research? There's
Mm-hmm.
only one group of people that have enough money to do double-blind controlled trials, which are the gold standard for medicine, and that's the pharmaceutical companies. That's not bad. We want research, but we can't get double-blind controlled trials on vitamin C or vitamin D or
Right,
elderberry syrup. So we don't have that evidence because nobody's doing it because there isn't a financial incentive. It doesn't mean it doesn't help.
right.
And we just need to be aware of that so that way we could shift back into a little bit more balance, a little bit more into a rhythm of nature, like you said. And we can do it. We don't have to move to the mountains. You can. I have friends that did it. You can move to the middle of nowhere, but that's not realistic for most parents. Let's do what we actually can do,
Yeah.
which is a lot.
I think just with what you said, if you have the awareness that we are being marketed to, we are, if what I've heard from a few different sources is true, we are one of two countries in the world that is allowed to advertise for pharmaceutical products. So we
Us
are
in New Zealand.
inundated. It's true. So it's us in New Zealand. And we are, the sickest developed country in the world. And right? I mean, it's there's a correlation here. So
Right.
yes, drugs save lives. Yes, there are many drugs out there that have changed the course of history, like antibiotics and others. And, but we have to, if we just understand that it's a business and they're allowed to market to us, we've been under a certain hypnosis that that's the only way. And we need to learn that you take one pill for one condition, it's going to have side effects. These are not side effects, these are actual effects of the drug that are going to throw off the other connected systems in your body, which is all of them. And then you're going to have to take another drug down the river, down the river, down the river, and drug. Great business model for pharmaceutical companies, not so great for our health. Again, not demonizing medication. It's just awareness going, okay, if I need to take a medication, it's going to have consequences, mostly good, hopefully doing what I do. But the ideal is to look at pharmaceuticals as bridges, like life-saving bridges for a moment in time to get you back to some level of normalcy where you can actually make changes in your lifestyle to support this really intelligent system, and then either lower that medication for a long period of time so it has minimal effect on your other systems in your body, or no longer have the need for that. So, and again, I'm hoping, everything, I believe in physics, I believe in quantum physics, equal and opposite reaction. So the ship is sinking, our chronic health, our medical, like we're bankrupting this country, based on everybody's illness. And, but there's going to be an equal and opposite rising. And I believe that we are going to have technologies and medications that are going to be more in line with nature. We are going to bring nature back into the equation, and everybody can win. Companies can make money and we could thrive in health. And that's the goal, and that's my hope. So again, not demonizing any one path. I know medication that has changed families' lives, talking about autism, families very close to me that had to put kids on medication just for their own sanity for a period of time while they learn other tools or figure out finances or whatever it is. And so, God bless. But the goal would be for health, true health and healing, that it's a bridge to a more natural, sustainable existence, I think.
Thank you for listening to the Heal with Kelly podcast. Be sure to tune in every Thursday for more empowering wisdom and inspiring healing stories. And make sure you hit the follow button on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss that one episode that holds the answer you've been searching for. Oh, and if you found this episode inspiring, please rate, review, and share Heal with Kelly so that we can grow our audience and reach more people. We truly appreciate it. Lots of love.